Okay, welcome to Flutter tutorial series number 2. So today we're going to continue with our application called MyHelper. Alright, so previously we have completed a splash screen and then navigate to MyHelper, to the MyHelper login, where we requested email and password from user. So in this login screen, it contains one image, two input here, which is for email, getting an email from user, and also password, and one checkbox, one login button, and two text link here. So the way that the Flutter implemented the login screen is based on using the following interface. However, if we try the application sideways, we might, in different orientation, it seems to work just okay because we lock the orientation of the application. Alright, so the interface is based on the following widget. Column with age inset alt set to 30. And then we have all the widgets inside the widget children array here. And then you can see the text controller, and then text field, row widget when we want to use a checkbox, and metro button with a rectangle border, and we set the border radius to 20. Set the color for the button, so we use a red, green, blue, and with the following value. This is basically an exact match to our logo. And then the size bar for padding, size bar also for padding for text register and text register down here. Alright, so today we're going to look at shared preference. So our application is this. Splash screen, and then we have our login, and then user can click I can enter the email and also their password hidden. And the idea for today is that we want to make sure that user, whenever they click on this checkbox, so these two information, or this email and password, can be stored in what we call as a shared preference. Okay, shared preference basically store these two value using key value pair into the application directory. So the way that we use it is by using preference widget. Right, so the idea is that when user click on this checkbox, these two value will be stored into the shared preference. So we're going to look into this operation, which is referring to the checkbox. So our checkbox is right here, and this checkbox controlled by onChange method. So we have this one value is check. So whenever we click on this, it change the isCheck variable boolean into true or false. Alright, so this value then transfer or pass over to the onChange method, which is here, and then this onChange method pass the value either true or false to the onChange private method down here. Alright, so from here, what we need now is to store the value of email and also password. So there's one set state method here which will change whenever the checkbox is being checked. So is checked or not. And then we're going to add our logic here. Alright, I'm going to build one method here called save preference, and I'm going to pass this value. So this save preference method is going to be down here, and alright, so in this method we're going to implement the save preference method. Okay, before we can use shared preference, we need to import shared preference library into our pub spec. So go to pub spec and add to development dependencies. So here, save the project, save the file, make sure you don't get any error here. Oh, sorry, we are having internet problem, so let me try to connect to the internet again. Make sure you're connected to internet. Alright, so there you go. Exit code 0 means that it is working now. Okay, so exit code 0, close that. So once you close that, then we can use shared preference in our project. Alright, so we start by creating a shared preference object. So import, but you need to add, whenever we use a shared preference, we need to add async to our method. And then alright, so before we can use shared preference also, we add shared preference into pub spec. We update the save preference method with async, and then we need also to import shared preference import package here. Alright, so once we have this, we can use object preference here to store email and password into application preference. Alright, then we need to check if the value that we receive, if either check or uncheck. If value true, then we store, means that whenever user click on the checkbox, we want to store the information. If user don't click or unclick the checkbox, so it means that they don't want to store, and then we can remove that preference. Alright, so if value and then else. So here store value in pref. Here we can remove value from preference. Alright, then we can check if user click on the checkbox, select on the checkbox, so we can use email. But before that, let us take the value from our controller. So our email equal email controller dot get dot text. And then for password equal controller dot text. Right, so if email, okay, so if the value that we receive, if the user click on the checkbox and then we'll check if the email is in the correct format. So if the email is in the correct format, then we store the value into our preference using this await preference set string email, and we store our email and also password. Else we can just say that just print out first, later we might need to have some information display to user, but for now we just say email invalid or invalid email. Alright, so that is basically the basic structure. Alright, so we need to update shared preference. This is due to the new version, so we need to set them. Whenever we use a shared preference, we need to set mock initial value, which is required. If not, you're going to end up with a few errors for the shared preference. So set the mock initial value as it is, as the following, and then create the object for shared preference, and get the value from AM controller. So for this, you don't need that just yet. Okay, get the value, check if value user click on the checkbox, and then check the email if the email is in the correct format or not. If the email is in the correct format, store in the preference and just print out the preference stored. Else email is invalid. If the value set to false, so we just show that preference has been removed. So let's see how the program works. So I'm going to clear debug console. So let's say we enter information abc@gmail only. So this is incorrect. And then set password, any password, 1 2 3 4 5. So click on this, it should show that preference value, check value also false. So we click on this, means that I want to store abc@gmail and then this password. So when I try to click here, you get check value true is okay, but then email is invalid here. Email is invalid means that we cannot store that value. So to make it right, so put .com, and then we click again, preference stored here. Okay, means that we managed to store the value into preference. Alright, so that basically for the preference. That basically allow us to store preference, but after we manage to store preference, we need to continue with updating our preference. Means that whenever the application start to load, something like this, we want to make sure that the email and password automatically show or display if that application is available or if that preference is available in the system. So we need to work on that. We need to check if the preference is available. We need to display, we need to show the email and password here, and then we need to automatically turn this on, check or uncheck if the preference is available. Alright, so to enable, whenever the application start to load this login screen, So we need to have this one override method inside our class login page. Okay, so the class is this is an override class init state. So init state basically initialize our init, and let me remove this. And when the application first load that particular page, this login page, it will basically load this preference method. So I'm going to call this load preference method. So this method is not yet available. I'm going to create this method here. So format document. Alright, so load preference also we're going to use shared preference. So this is another async method. Alright, so for here inside this load preference, we can just create an object again, preference, and assign our email and password to the using preference.getString. So because our data based on string, so preference.getString, get email and get password. The key that we use storing the shared preference is email and password. So we can just call email and password and get that, assign that to our variable email and also variable password. So just to test either the variable is there or not, we can just print that email and also print password, just to test if the variable is there or not during the loading of the layout. Alright, so restart your application. So if you're having that problem, so means that the plugin didn't install into your AVD. So restart your application. Always do that once you include new library, restart, because that library wasn't included into your current hot reload. So for example, like this, let me restart here, restart the application. I mean reinstall the application, but for me I already reinstalled the application and restart the application just to see if my save preference is working or not. Alright, it should load inside load preference, and this is the password and email that stored in my preference. Alright, so there you go. So here we have the init state load preference. So when we go to the load preference, prints inside load preference, this is just to show that we are inside the load preference. Shared preference, assign the value with pref.getString email, and then print out the value from the preference. From there, what we need now is we need to display that. So if the application detected there's an email and password stored in the preference, we display that in here. Alright, so with that, we just check if email, just a simple email is .lang is bigger than, let's see, just bigger than 1, just to check if it is bigger than 1 or not. Okay, so check if the email is bigger than 1 or not, and what we need now is just to assign the email controller.text with email and password controller.text equal to password, update our interface using set state, and is check equal true if that is the case of email length is bigger than 1. If email length is it's not there means that we don't have the email and password. So we just use another option here, which is else. What we need now is just implement the set state equal to false to update our checkbox, and making sure that the checkbox is not set to true. So let us try this. Let me restart. Okay, so we get this and load preference. So our email and password now automatically shown here, and then remember me also click. Alright, so that is what we want to achieve for the shared preference. Alright, so next what we need to do is when user click on this, we're going to remove this shared preference from our preference. So to do that, so we need to go back to our save preference here. So in this save preference, when user click on the save preference checkbox, it store the value. Else, remove the preference. So easy. So we only need to update here, remove value from preference. So I'm going to take the code here, very simple. So save the preference with empty string, nothing, and then again set state our email controller and password controller, and then is check equal to false. Okay, so that's it. So preference remove. Let us try that. This one with save preference should be okay. Save preference dot. So if we click on this, we remove the preference. So if we restart the application, so the preference should no longer be there. Okay, so no longer there. So if we try to save preference here, email invalid. One more thing, we need to make sure that if user try to click and then try to save, which is contain nothing, so we need to go back here, email invalid, and we need to update, making sure that we don't allow that checkbox to be updated. Alright, so for that we need to make sure checkbox is this, and just we need to set state, and because whenever we call set state, it basically updated our interface, making sure that we won't allow that to happen. Okay, if we try this, click, cannot click, right? Cannot click that if we didn't store correct value. So if I try to store one value, and then with password, remember now the preference successfully saved. So we restart the application again. You should be able to get preference display here. Alright, so that is it. You can get this through my GitHub. You can go to my GitHub, which is here under folder MyHelper. So the code for this will be available, will be pushed in this particular folder. Alright, go and check it out. So you can see the lib, login screen, splash screen will be updated. Alright, so go ahead and use it for your project. That's it. Thank you.